And then they went looking for him after the flood, and turns out that the flood had washed all the gold down out of the mountains, and it was lying around everywhere, and it was pure. It didn't need any refining. So there's very interesting, intertwinings of the stories that we know from the Bible and these Sumerian ones. In Genesis, God's talking about the rivers, and the first one is Pishon or something, and that's where the gold is. It says so right there. Why does God care about gold? And the gold is good, he says.
New studies show that by the time people reach their middle ages, the body often produces less than half of the collagen it did in their youth. Collagen is the main building block in our skin, making up 70 to 80% of it. This is why we get sagging skin and wrinkles as we age. If you want to look younger, you must supplement collagen, which will improve your skin's elasticity, make it smoother, more plump, and more youthful looking. That's why Ageless Multi-Collagen provides 5 key types of collagen you need from 4 different sources, essential to optimally support an array of full-body benefits. No odor, no taste, no clumping, unlike other collagen supplements. And this is why I recommend Health with Adapt 2030. Ageless Multi-Collagen, and look at that, I need another bag already. Quick way for youthful appearance. Use the link in the description box below for 51% off my favorite Ageless Multi-Collagen. And now on with the video. And I thank every single one of you for joining our conversation. I'm with Ted Marchildon, the developer of Omega Rotary Garden. This is an innovation that we need to be able to bring indoor vertical agriculture to feed our planet.
And I'm up in the wee hours in the morning. I think it was the first year that CNN was on the air, and Southern Ontario, and I'm watching this image of the whatever it is. It's flying over the surface, and it's analyzing these different shapes. And there's a counter at the bottom that's calculating the odds of natural occurrence. Well, it hits those pyramids, and it hits that face, and the odds of natural occurrence, according to the bottom of the screen, were 0. It took from then until just not too long ago, I read, I think it was The Lost Book of Enki, where I realized, who's that face on Mars finally is. They had banished him there, I think, because he lost the fight, he lost the wrestling match to Anu, and then Anu's like got a foot on his chest, and he lets the guy up, and he jumps up and bites his junk off. And but that kills him slowly. And that happened on Mars apparently. And then they set up the gold processing, and then after the flood, all their operations are under mud and water, and they're all screwed. But Cain, who slew Abel, instead of because they were the first 2 born of Adam, they're wanting the humans to multiply, right? They want to use them working in the garden, working in the mines. And so they didn't kill him, they banished him. And the mark of Cain, which I found, I could never figure out what the heck that was. They all had these fabulous beards. So the mark of Cain was beardless. And they sent him basically to the Americas. And then they went looking for him after the flood. And turns out that the flood had washed all the gold down out of the mountains, and it was lying around everywhere, and it was pure. It didn't need any refining. So now the 300 that are on Mars are out of a job, and they end up coming to Earth because Marduk, Ra, is marrying one of the daughters of Adam. And that's when they all took Earth wives, and those are the fallen ones. So there's very interesting intertwinings of the stories that we know from the Bible and these Sumerian ones. In Genesis, God's talking about the rivers, and the first one is Pishon or something, and that's where the gold is. It says so right there. Why does God care about gold? And the gold is good, he says.
Yeah, and you look at the Vatican and you see all of the gold objects laying around, from the gold crosses to the gold goblets, and everything had to be gold assimilated into the Vatican, and it just goes on and on, this reverence for gold. And it always seems to be stockpiled in a few places. And if you look across archaeological digs, pure gold, like you say, just laying on top of things. Who's in charge of all the gold objects that have been found and plundered for the last 500 years and all the quote unquote archaeological digs? It's in the hands of like 3 institutions. Again, it's just nothing more than a consolidation of gold objects into the hands of a few, probably be delivered to the masters at some point.
Well, they show up. They were apparently here, according to Sitchin. Last time they were here was about between 500 and 550 AD. That's when you can see this planet from Earth, and it's when it's there's a certain point in its orbit where they call it Nibiru, the planet of the crossing. So that's what the cross is all about.
And let me toss in something real quick. You mentioned that date there. 535 to 540 AD was the largest volcanic eruptions in the last 8,000 years on our planet. So think about that for a second. You're telling me that exact same date range, but maybe that gravitational pull from, maybe it was a real close passing that caused extreme volcanism. They can name at least 3 volcanoes that blocked out the sun for years, and the sulfur dioxide was so heavy that it poisoned people across the northern hemisphere. To the point it set society back, and I think there was something 70% loss of life globally because of those events of the volcanism. That was 535 to 540 AD. And that's the end of the Roman Empire too, in earnest. Okay, they debased the currency, whatever. But the end of the Roman Empire, the last we ever heard of the Roman Empire with any type of, say, pull or push on world events at the point, it was right at that same time. And, Aksum down in around Ethiopia and, say, Yemen, they took over the gold standard and the gold weights and measures of coinage after the Roman Empire collapsed, because they had the frankincense and different aromatic spice trade all the way through the Middle East up into Europe. And they took over the coinage and were the number one most valued coin, because it was down, they didn't debase, and it was down to the measurements that it should have been again. Interesting, that date that you just mentioned there.
Well, I mentioned, I think, or maybe I got it wrong, but I mentioned BC, 5 to 550 BC.
Oh, this is 535 AD.
So, but when you say that the planet crossing caused the trouble, apparently this planet is 10 times the size of Earth. So it wreaks some havoc when it comes in, because it comes in early legend, even for those guys, that planet smacked into whatever planet was where the asteroid belt is now.
Tiamat.
So it comes right inside the solar system in the inner planets and wreaks havoc. And it was apparently calculated to knock the ice off of Antarctica. And that was the beginning of the flood, the biblical flood. Now, I think all the excess water actually came from the inside of the planet. And because of the electrical arcing that happened between those two things, I think you had something like a magneto pump, which pumped all the water out of the inside. And then after it got far enough away, I think that water drained back inside, because where did the water come from? Where did it go? Apparently, there's 3 times the water on the inside of the planet as the outside of the planet. So that's all I can think of. I never read about that anywhere, in a whole sense, but picking from this and picking from that. And if somebody said to me, somebody did ask me not that long ago, "Oh, you're so smart, where'd all the water go?" And when I answered them, they were like, "Huh, okay."
Well, no, you have something there, because Andy Hall up at the Electric Universe and the Thunderbolts Project, Andy Hall talks about electric geology, which would have sculpted the Grand Canyon. And I myself have seen with my own eyes, the Adriatic Sea looked very much like a plasma bolt had ripped through, and then the ionized wind pushed out The debris in an exact pattern of every boulder that was along the Adriatic Sea was the exact same size. And as you headed inland, the boulder size became smaller and smaller. Every boulder was the exact same size and weight pretty much as you went through. I was so shocked by the topography as I was coming out of the Adriatic going back inland. But you're right. If the water came out, it would have absorbed back in or fallen and found its way back in until it refilled in the earth too. And those earth cracks that would have occurred at that time where that water could have emanated from, once the water seeped back in, those earth cracks would have sealed themselves back up again. And I think we're coming into another era of that with this global liquefaction event, earth cracks, crustal slips, etc., as we come into this magnetic coupling in 2024. So is another flood possible? Yes, but I call it a mud flood or a global liquefaction event where we're going to have water spewing out from the earth. And we're already seeing this in so many places in the last 2 months across the planet right now. You're right. There's way more water in the Earth's crust than there is above on the planets, and all the rivers, Great Lakes, and oceans combined. There's 3x more in the crust.
There's some of the Sitchin writings of the Sumerian stuff that they claim that the realm of Hades and things like that, that was South Africa, but I don't see any reason why it wouldn't have been the inside. I think we're stuck on the outside of the spaceship. And if you're on the inside, then it's going to be this archetype of abundance. You've got the fire inside the movement. However, there has been cosmic rays detected coming out of Antarctica. So I'm thinking, well, how do you get that?
I'd seen those same reports, and I was asking the same thing. Was there some sort of crustal split, and then what's considered the core was emanating some sort of energy resonance that they can only explain it as cosmic rays? Think about a different type of energy that's unknown to us, that's emanating from the crust outward. As a catch-all, you could just say it's cosmic rays. Would you really try to explain it to the masses that, well, there's this different kind of energy, we didn't know the core was different, and by the way, this crust just split open in Antarctica, and those energy particles are spilling out, but they're not really the gamma rays or any kind of rays that we understand. They're not protons or something different, but keep going and paying your taxes. and keep saving for your retirement. How off base would that be? Though it's a cosmic ray event.
Well, the inner earth, the Buddhists have a thing on that. Tibetans, Lhasa is apparently a way to get in. Right now I'm reading the second book over again from the Earth Chronicles, and it's the one about Stairway to Heaven. And so you've got all the quest for immortality and the fountain of youth and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going through that kind of rereading all that stuff. So what if you have long life and you're living outside, but every couple hundred years you get whacked, whatever, all these different things that are going on. I say it's like if you're a bug on the windshield, if you're on the inside of the windshield or you're on the outside of the windshield, which is your preference? I'd much rather be on the inside of the windshield.
Especially on a freezing cold day where it's 40 degrees below zero outside and you have that nice toasty heater on the inside, right? Grand solar minimum.
Even if it's raining, somebody turns on the wipers, that's the end of you.
Oh, now you're being vindictive, man. Let me be on the windshield undisturbed. Nope. You can't grow your own food. You can't create your own electricity for your own house with a magnetic motor. How dare you?